Yes, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Apologies, we are late because we were still trying to follow up on those two games in the Italian Serie A that determine who wins the Scudetto. Napoli looking for their fourth Scudetto, while Inter Milan are looking for their 21st. And those games are still ongoing. Inter Milan are 2 goals up against Cagliari, while Napoli are equally 2 goals up. Sorry, Napoli are 2 goals up against Cagliari, while Inter Milan are also 2 goals up against Como. Como were down to 10 men, having lost their goalkeeper in Jose Manuel Pepe Reina, who was given a red card in the first half. So allow me to test our audios, and we will get into the thick of tonight's conversation with you. So anyways, I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. It's been a very long day. It's been quite a busy day. Plenty of transfer news to go through. Liverpool fans, gather on here. Let's get into the thick of the conversation because there's plenty of news that does concern Liverpool. And Anna Slot coming out to say he's going to give Xabi Alonso an early gift. He confirming that Alexander Trent-Arnold is going to be joining Real Madrid when he came out to say that after all, Alexander Trent-Arnold is leaving the club. Why bother including him in the matchday squad to face Crystal Palace? So, well, that and much more. But more importantly, we have news on Florian Wirtz, Bruno Fernandez, Kevin De Bruyne, Victor Osimhen is a wanted man, Andoni Iraola is a wanted man, Simone Inzaghi is a wanted man. I mean, name it all. Benjamin Sesko is a wanted man, and those talks have begun. So much really going on in the world of transfers, in the world of football. So, guys, kindly like the broadcast, tell me where you're joining us from and what you're up to this evening or this late night. Apologies once again, we are coming a bit late. It is after 11, 11:30, slightly after that, because like I said, we are trying to follow up on those two games between Napoli and Cagliari, while the other game is between Inter and Como. So guys, kindly like the broadcast and also consider subscribing to the channel. If you're new, I'd like to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers and to all those that were with us in our morning broadcast. Thank you so much for the love and support. I really appreciate it for those of you that have helped us stay on course on this journey by following what we do. So do let me know where you're joining us from, what country you're from. Let's engage. I do not want these conversations to be one-way traffic, but kindly help me click on that like button on this broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. So, but in the meantime, also let me note down in the comment section how your day has been. How are you doing? Where are you joining us from? I know in India it's about 1:39 a.m. already. I know in the UK it's approximately 9:40 and that kind of thing. I know in Turkey it's about the same time, 11:40. In the Philippines it could be much later in the night. So we've had yesterday we had Florisha joining us from Philippines, and it was 4 a.m. for her timeline. And when I asked her what she was doing up, she told me she was praying because she's an Orthodox Christian. Isn't this world quite an amazing place to be? Anyways, those guys, let me know where you're joining us from. It's really important for us to know, at least for me to know, and that's how I get to remember many of you when you join us. Of course, there's a couple of usual suspects that we missed on the broadcast in the last one day or two, or for the last 3 broadcasts, including our colleague Mario Momoto, the Liverpool fan. Of course, on Sunday, Liverpool will be given their title, their Premier League title. That engraving of their credentials and everything has been completed. Just waiting. But and then there's that game between Real Betis and Valencia. Anthony has scored his 9th goal in the season ever since joining from Manchester United on loan 4 months ago. He scored his 9th goal, provided 5 assists so far, so he's really thriving there. In the of Inter Milan, up against Como, those ones are in a 2-0 lead. Like I said, Como are down to 10 men after Jose Manuel Pepe Reina, the former Liverpool goalkeeper, because that's where he spent a large chunk of his playing career. 9 years, was given a red card in the first half. Of course, he has played for teams like Villarreal, he's played for teams like Barcelona, he's played for teams like Napoli, I think on 2 occasions, and that kind of thing. So really, really a big player there. But Inter Milan are in a 2-0 lead against Como, while Cagliari with a similar scoreline from Agri, their best 2 players of the season, in Scott McTominay, who are scoring his 12th goal of the season, as well as providing 4 assists, did open the scoring with a brilliant strike. For those of you that do remember, Robin van Persie's goal that he scored against Charlton Athletic, I think, which year was it? Might have been 2006, around that time, against Charlton Athletic. That sort of volley, although his was a bit from outside, a little outside the area, I think it was Emmanuel Eboué crossing that, bringing in that cross. That goal was reminded to us by the one and only, the lost Brazilian, Onyx, for those of you that do follow him. So the goal that Scott McTominay just scored is kind of similar to that, although Scott McTominay was a bit entangled in the midst of defenders when he does that volley, or close to a half-back score kick, depending on how you interpret it. But as he scored his 12th goal of the campaign, and I mean, he's arguably been one of the best players of the season in as far as the Italian Serie A is concerned. And then, of course, the second goal was scored by none other than the usual suspect in Romelu Lukaku, was equally scoring his 14th goal of the season, as having also provided 10 assists. So that's a 24-goal involvement across the season, while Scott McTominay, it's a 16-goal involvement. So clearly, really, really a beautiful stuff there. Niceness all over in Italy. So looks like Napoli are destined to win their 4th Scudetto, while Inter Milan will have to try again next season in case they do want to win their 21st Scudetto. The games are into stoppage time already. We're into the 91st minute of the game. Very soon Napoli will be crowned champions, because as things stand, as things stand, I need to have a look here at the Italian Serie A table. As things stand, Napoli will finish with 82 points, while Inter Milan will finish behind them with 81 points, following those respective victories. So Inter Milan know it, that all their efforts will have counted for nothing, but at least for them, they still have a UEFA Champions League final to play. That's coming on the 31st of May, Saturday, next weekend on Saturday, against PSG. So maybe let's hope they can walk away with a piece of silverware after that kind of a very long season. Anyways, moving away from that, I mean, the hottest news of the day has revolved around Liverpool, because Liverpool are edging closer and closer to signing Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. Remember, they did come in a bit late after Manchester City, Bayern Munich, had already expressed their interest, while Xabi Alonso's move to Real Madrid as their new manager had brought Real Madrid into the picture of that conversation for the move of the 22-year-old German international. However, as things stand, Liverpool are in pole position to sign Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen. That's after the player gave Liverpool a verbal agreement that it is them that he has chosen over Bayern Munich. He has already informed Bayern Munich through his representatives that he won't be joining them, that he has chosen Liverpool over FC Bayern Munich. Now, at the start of this saga, it was quite open out there that Bayer Leverkusen preferred to sell to a club outside the German Bundesliga, and were waiting for offers from Man City, who were at the time leading the race. I think about a week or two ago, we spoke about Florian Wirtz having visited Manchester City, having visited Manchester City to have talks between him and his representatives. That's his father, who is his agent, along with his mother, who had made the trip to the UK to have conversations with officials from Manchester City. And then early this week, we did report that Manchester City had pulled out of the race to sign Florian Wirtz because they had deemed the player overly valued, because the reports indicated that Bayer Leverkusen do value him for about 150 million euros. Then Bayern Munich, even when they were really, really interested in signing the player, they were also feeling a little bit off-put by the asking valuation for the player, but also were waiting for a player to make a decision on where he wanted to play his football going forward. It looks like, as of now, ever since Manchester City pulled out of this conversation, Real Madrid's conversations really never went anywhere far beyond the speculation that had the correlation to do with Xabi Alonso, who has been his manager at Bayer Leverkusen, and him joining Real Madrid. They never went anything beyond that. But Liverpool made serious inquiries, and remember, Liverpool had already established good relations with Bayer Leverkusen in the thick of negotiations for Jeremy Frimpong, and Liverpool were very direct about that. They were very direct about that, and they've since made headway. They've agreed on everything, and the player putting pen to paper on a 5-year contract that will keep him at Anfield until June 2030, and that kind of thing. So on the back of those relations, Liverpool already had good relationship with Bayer Leverkusen, and they had already expressed their interest in wanting to sign the 2-year-old German playmaker, who has been quite crucial for Bayer Leverkusen for the last 2 seasons. This season alone, he has had a 22-goal contribution in 31 appearances in the German Bundesliga, scoring 10 goals and providing 12 assists. While in the UEFA Champions League, he made 9 appearances and had a goal contribution of 7, scoring 6 goals and providing 1 assist. So he's quite the player. I think he, in terms of providing assists, I mean, he's like a young Mesut Ozil, but because he scores more goals, I mean, there's a lot of faith in the player. There's a lot of room for improvement. So much groundwork has been done by Liverpool and all the other clubs that are interested in him, especially Manchester City, as well as Bayern Munich, who have had to watch him over the last 4 seasons in the German Bundesliga. Then, of course, not last season when they were going a whole season unbeaten, to win the German Bundesliga, and as well as the DFB Pokal, and also reach the finals of the UEFA Europa League. Never mind that they lost to Atlanta by 3 goals to nil. Ademola Lookman scoring a hat-trick for Atlanta. He managed to post a 22-goal involvement in 32 Bundesliga games, providing 11 assists and scoring 10 goals. So that's the kind of player we are talking about. Already proven, tested at the highest level of competitions, and he has been, knocking things out of the park. So Liverpool have already entered negotiations with Bayer Leverkusen over an agreement for a transfer fee. Liverpool want to make this deal as soon as possible. They do not want it to prolong to avoid any late minutes, sort of deal hiccups and that kind of thing. So they are really moving fast. But according to Sky Sport Germany, the fee could be anywhere between 130 to 150 million euros that could sway Bayer Leverkusen into making the deal for the 22-year-old German international. So that's been the news that has really dominated affairs in as far as transfers are concerned in the last 2-3 hours or so. Meanwhile, briefly, the games in Italy have concluded with, of course, Inter Milan beating up against Como by 2 goals to nil, while Napoli have beaten up against Cagliari by 2 goals to nil to be crowned champions. At home, at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium in Naples, Italy, they are winning their 4th Scudetto. They have had to do it without Victor Osimhen. They've done it with players like Bill Gilmore, formerly at Chelsea and Brighton and Hove Albion. They've done it with Scott McTominay, a former Manchester United player, one who, while speaking this season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did wonder why Manchester United even let him go in the first place. They've done it with a with a Romelu Lukaku, played the evenings of his careers, but he's posted a 14 goal scoring campaign, as well as 10 assists. Scott McTominay, 12 goals and 6 assists, and 4 assists across the campaign. Really. So those have been some of the standout players in as far as this Antonio Conte managed and Napoli side is concerned. Remember, they lost Kiricha Kvaratskhelia, one of their best players, in January when he moved on to PSG. And speaking of which, he's going to be the first player to win the French League One and win the Italian Serie A trophies in the same season, because remember, his first half of the season was with Napoli, where he was a very reliable player for the Georgian international, and then he moved to PSG, where he has done tremendously well. So really good luck, congratulations to the Georgian international there in Kiricha Kvaratskhelia. Anyways, maybe finally to conclude on Florian Wirtz, like I said, on the verge of joining Liverpool in what is expected to be a British record transfer fee. Remember, some of the most expensive buys in as far as British football is concerned, we had Enzo Fernandez joining Chelsea from Benfica in January 2023 in a deal that was worth 121 million euros. And then we had Moises Caicedo joining Chelsea from Brighton and Hove Albion in a deal worth about 115 million pounds. And then, of course, you go back to the likes of Jack Grealish, 100 million pounds from Aston Villa to Man City, Declan Rice, 100 million pounds from West Ham to Arsenal, rising up to about 155 million pounds in expected add-ons and things of that nature. Then you also had Paul Pogba joining from Juventus to Manchester United in a deal believed to be about 89 million pounds. In between there, you had Romelu Lukaku returning to Chelsea from Inter Milan in a deal that was in about 100 million pounds or thereabout, or slightly below. That kind of thing. So really in some of the most expensive deals. So if Florian Wirtz is to join Liverpool for a fee anywhere between 130 to 150 million euros, as it is being speculated, then he will be the most expensive transfer in British football. Anyways, Napoli are champions and the celebrations have kicked off in Naples. It's all beautiful to watch. So you'll forgive me if I turn my eyes away and look at my screen, but my feed seems to have broken. But anyways, the celebrations do continue for Napoli there. Briefly, I just wanted to get us a quote in as regards to Florian Wirtz in as far as things go. This was from about 3 hours ago. Fabrizio Romano saying Liverpool have made formal approach to Bayer Leverkusen for Florian Wirtz. After initial green light from the player, Liverpool and Bayer Leverkusen are in talks over a transfer fee. Liverpool want the deal to be done very soon, not a long saga, to avoid any surprises. So there you have it. If anybody knows where Mariam Omoto is, kindly tag her for me to come and enjoy this broadcast, because she's a Liverpool fan. Mr. Okoyo Amlen, another Liverpool fan. Then there's another Liverpool fan from the UK. I seem to have forgotten your name, sir, but wherever you are, I hope you're enjoying your evening in the wake of that news, because what a scoop Florian Wirtz will be for Liverpool. Meanwhile, still speaking transfers, Manchester City have approached AC Milan of a potential deal to sign Tian Rienders. That's the 26-year-old central midfielder from AC Milan. The Dutch international there is open to joining Manchester City, who are going to be losing Kevin De Bruyne, who we're going to talk about in just a bit. So they are really looking for replacements for players like Mateo Kovacic, who is likely to leave the club at the end of the season. Players like Ilkay Gundogan, who they are open to selling despite his contract still being on. Pep Guardiola did confirm that Kyle Walker will not be part of their squad that will be featuring in the FIFA Club World Cup. So they will be looking for a replacement for Kyle Walker, and they are looking at Newcastle's Timo Livramento for a signing to replace Kyle Walker at their right back position. So a lot of news is coming in there, but Man City are really moving forward in their pursuit for Tian Rienders in regards to that transfer, because they want to secure a central midfielder, among other options in the market. And this was according to Fabrizio Romano. Again, Manchester City have started club-to-club talks with AC Milan for Thiago Reinders as top target. Negotiations to continue next week as opening bid expected to arrive soon. City want to be fast for Club World Cup, plus anticipate other European top clubs keen on Thiago Reinders. Remember, Real Madrid are also interested in signing the Dutch international. So the faster Manchester City move, the better it will be for Pep Guardiola. Speaking of Manchester City, like I said, they are also interested in signing Tino Livramento from Newcastle as their preferred choice for a right back. Excuse me. So Tino Livramento, a very, very good player, and Manchester City are really interested. It may be a bit of a difficult deal to pull off because Newcastle are in a good position financially and in many respects, and also they are trying to build their own project. But because it's Man City, they equally have the money. And remember, Newcastle have not been spending in so much in windows gone by due to PSR rules. They needed to get things right. That's why they are really fighting hard to get back in the UEFA Champions League, which they featured in last season, because they know what that means for their fans, for finances, and that kind of thing. That's why they're really, really fighting back to get back in the UEFA Champions League. So it may be a bit of a difficult deal to pull off for Manchester City, but they are interested in signing Tino Livramento from Newcastle as their preferred choice for a replacement for Kyle Walker. Then the other key transfer news of the day is Kevin De Bruyne. Now, Kevin De Bruyne has given a green light to join SC Napoli on a potentially a 2 or 3 year contract when he leaves Manchester City at the end of the season. The 33-year-old Belgian international has given the green light to Antonio Conte and his side in Napoli there that he is open to joining them, and he wants the deal to be concluded before he goes on his vacation, on his summer vacation, because he did say that he won't be joining Manchester City for the FIFA Club World Cup. He did say something like, if I get injured, who is going to take care of me? Because his contract runs until June 30th. And remember, the FIFA Club World Cup starts about June 30th and goes on to about July 15th, thereabout. So clearly, by the time the competition ends, possibly if Manchester City have advanced up to until that stage, means that he would have been out of contract by the time they get there. So there was a quote, according to Gimme Sport, that he did say he may not be part of the Manchester City squad that goes for the FIFA Club World Cup. So that's to note. So, and Napoli are mulling over whether to give him 2 years on his contract with an option to extend for a further year, or straight down a 3 year contract, but the player would prefer a 3 year contract. So remember, he's going to be a free agent, so he gets sign-on fees, he gets a good salary, and that kind of thing. Napoli are trying to move on Victor Osimhen. Remember, he spent the whole of last season on loan at Galatasaray. Greetings to you, Safa Ali from Turkey, who is a Fenerbahce fan there. So Galatasaray are interested in retaining the player, but there's another Saudi Pro League club that is going to be featuring in the FIFA Club World Cup that are also interested in signing. That is Victor Osimhen. So that's the news from Napoli. Of course, Napoli are also interested in signing Alejandro Garnacho as their replacement for Ivica Kvaratskhelia. And the comments that Alejandro Garnacho made in the aftermath of that loss to Tottenham Hotspur on Wednesday night, as they lost the UEFA Europa League to Tottenham Hotspur, have angered some Manchester United fans and perhaps Manchester United officials. Of course, we all know it's an open secret that he did hold talks with Chelsea and Napoli in January over a potential move, but that never manifested. And he did say, particularly in the aftermath of that game, that their season has been shit, that they've not beaten anybody in the Premier League, they failed to win the UEFA Europa League. But more importantly, he did say that he was surprised to play only 20 minutes in the final when he had been used for every stage and made a good contribution. Well, some fans think he chose to make it about himself as opposed to saying sorry, to sympathize or to empathize with the fans who had traveled to San Mamés and had seen a disappointing result from the team. They expected an apology for the poor display they've had this season as a team as a whole, and that kind of thing. But they never got it. So looks like there is a bit of disgruntledness in Alejandro Garnacho, who said he will try to have a good summer before he decides his future. But I'm sure Napoli will be interested as much as Chelsea, who are also interested in his services. But we will wait to hear more on that as the transfer window rages on. Then the other player we want to speak about is still a Manchester United player in Bruno Fernandez. Now, Bruno Fernandez, it is expected, this is according to Ben Jacobs of Kimi Sport, who says that Al Hilal, who are interested in signing Bruno Fernandez, are set to give him a 72-hour ultimatum for the 30-year-old Portuguese international to decide on whether he wants to join them or not, so that they can move on to other targets. Remember, they want to sign him before the start of the FIFA Club World Cup. And like I've explained before on this broadcast, on this podcast, is that the transfer window is going to open on June the 1st until June 10th officially, and then it will close and then be reopened on the June 16th. And the reason as to why it is opening early is so that clubs that are going to be competing in the FIFA Club World Cup can buy new players, can sell some players, and register them for the same competition. So, with that said, it is on the backdrop of that environment and everything that Al Hilal are planning to give Bruno Fernandez an ultimatum of 72 hours for him to decide whether he wants to join them or not. Now, according to reports from Portugal, it says that the player is really considering leaving Manchester United because the offer on the table is too good to say no to. £700,000 per week plus bonuses put on table for the player who turns 31 years of age in September. Now, Manchester United as a club do not want to sell because, like I've said before, Bruno Fernandez is the crown jewelry of that squad. He is the player they want to build their project, their rebuild around him with Ruben Amorim. Now, he's had a 19-goal contribution and about 17 assists across all competitions for Manchester United this season, and he did win the Manchester United Player of the Season accolades, and I think Amadou Diallo won for maybe Young Player of the Year, that kind of thing. So Al Hilal are interested. Manchester United do not want to sell. However, according to the latest reports seeping out of Manchester United, is that they may be tempted to sell Bruno Fernandes if a good offer does come on the table. And the offer they are talking about is a bid in the region of £100 million plus. Now, the player that you bought for about £47 million from Sporting Lisbon, a player that does turn 31 in September, I mean, £100 million when you're in a financial shithole, when you've made so much losses over the last 3 years, which are approximately about £300 million. PSR rules are going to be creeping up on you. And in fact, again, according to reports this morning, that we did receive this morning, were that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Manchester United hierarchy have been told to look at players that are in the region of 10 to 20 million pounds. Whether that's gospel truth or mere speculation, we will wait to see on how Manchester United behave in the market. Of course, they've held conversations with the likes of with the likes of Victor Gyökeres, who they would like to sign, with the likes of Liam Delap, who they'd like to sign. Both are strikers. They've held talks over Matthias Cunha. We had expected that in the immediate aftermath of the UEFA Europa League finals, it will be a here we go for Matthias Cunha from Wolverhampton Wanderers to Manchester United. Whether they are reconsidering that option remains to be seen, but everything was agreed on personal terms in regards to the player and the club, and what was left was Manchester United to get into the depth of the paperwork between them and Wolverhampton Wanderers. But that here we go is seemingly now taking a snail's pace to get there. So it looks like Manchester United are sort of trying to reconsider or to revise their transfer strategy after failing to get Champions League football, having lost the UEFA Europa League title. So that means a lot to their finances and how they go about the transfer market. Then it was also reported, this was according to the Sun, but you know, you take news from the Sun with a pinch of salt. that all Manchester United players were tabled for sale. Bring a good offer and you win yourself a Manchester United player. But also, yesterday we did talk about, for those of you that were with us last night, we did talk about players like Jadon Sancho, Anthony, Marcus Rashford, as some of the players that they are really, really looking forward to selling to raise a bit of funds to finance their transfer escapades this summer. So that's there. Meanwhile, Al Hilal are also interested in signing Victor Osimhen as their first choice for striker. Remember, they want to sign these players in preparations or in time just enough to play in the FIFA Club World Cup. But they also have a managerial position to fill, and on that regard, they failed conversations with AFC Bournemouth's Andon Iraola. However, AFC Bournemouth do expect the Spaniard manager to stay with them at the club. Now, their preferred number one choice for manager is Simone Inzaghi. But remember, Simone Inzaghi is still at Inter Milan, who are in the finals of the UEFA Champions League. That final coming on Saturday, 31st of May. But also, Inter Milan, they themselves are going to be featuring in the FIFA Club World Cup, which could make the deal a bit too difficult to pull off at the moment. Whether the Italian international will move to joining Al Hilal, that remains to be seen, but at least that's the speculation coming out of the Saudi Pro League in as far as their preparations for the FIFA Club World Cup are concerned. Then earlier on, the Liverpool manager Arne Slot was speaking to the media ahead of their fixture on Sunday against Crystal Palace, after which they will be crowned champions. They will be handed their titles. Their Premier League title as champions of the 2024-2025 Premier League season. And he did say, of course, they asked him about so many things. They asked him about Barcelona's interest in Luis Diaz, because the other day, Deco, I was speaking to the media and he said, yes, they do have interest in Liverpool's Luis Diaz as well as Manchester United's Marcus Rashford. And in responding to that, he said he also likes Lamine Yamal and Rafinha. That was his response. Oh, quite cold. Anyways, it is what it is. So, but like we've spoken here before, Liverpool will be open to selling Luis Diaz if a good offer comes. However, they are not eager to sell, and that's why they are willing to offer the 28-year Colombian international a contract extension. Of course, there is also interest from other Saudi Pro League clubs, but Barcelona have interest in the player. So that is that. Then speaking, he was also asked about Alexander Trent-Arnold and the kind of environment or expectation that we should expect. And he did say that he's a player that he has spoken with quite often. He's been often, he was in his early stages at Liverpool as manager and a slot. Trent-Arnold was one of those players that really used to come very often in his office. And he went on to say something like that he told him he is actually a better defender than most people, give him credit for. And he told him he could do better in terms of defending. But also, Kivica Kvaratskhelia was having an interview and was being asked on the most difficult defender he's faced so far this season, ever since joining PSG. And he said it was Trent Alexander-Arnold. So, brilliant. Anyways, so the conversation about Alexander Trent-Arnold went on, and Arne Slot still was being asked whether he would be, start the game and that kind of thing. And he said maybe you could give Xabi Alonso a gift and rest the player. After all, he is leaving the club. That's how he confirmed that Alexander Trent-Arnold is going to join Real Madrid, because he said he will be giving Xabi Alonso a gift, and he said the player was no longer coming to his office as often as he used to. But anyways, that's from the side of Liverpool in as far as Alexander Trent-Arnold is concerned. So, guys, that's been the gist of the conversation in regards to transfers. Then, still, Chelsea want to extend Moises Caicedo's contract. Now, remember, most Chelsea players are on very lengthy contracts. 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. I think Cole Palmer is on a 9-year contract and that kind of thing. And now, every now and then you'll hear that Chelsea want to renew a player's contract. And usually it comes with either a 1-year contract extension or 2 years. but also with maybe an improvement in salary and that kind of thing. Now, Chelsea, I want to have a conversation with Moises Caicedo over extending his contract. Now, his current contract does run up to June 30, runs up to June 2031. So, isn't that like about what, 6 years from now, or even 7? But anyways, they do want to extend his contract. We'll wait to see on that front and see where that conversation does end. But I mean, then the other player that is going to be a hot cake in the transfer news is none other than João Pedro of Brighton and Hove Albion, because so many teams are interested in his services, including Arsenal has been mentioned in that conversation, as well as Chelsea for the 50 million pound rated player. That's João Pedro. And then Bayern Munich. Let's speak Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are interested in signing Kaoru Mitoma, the 28-year-old Japanese international from Brighton and Hove Albion. He is on their priority list. And behind him is AC Milan's Rafael Leao. Now, we all know that Bayern Munich do want to add a winger as a replacement for Leroy Sané, as well as Kingsley Coman. Now, the reports are that Bayern Munich have failed to come to an agreement with Leroy Sané over a new contract, and so he may leave the club. Then Kingsley Coman is also leaving, so Bayern Munich want a winger, and they are highly considering Brighton and Hove's Kaoru Mitoma, as well as Rafael Leao in their pursuits, in as far as wingers are concerned. So keep your ears to the ground in regards to Kaoru Mitoma and where he may be playing his football next season, or Rafael Leao. That's the Portuguese international. He could be on the move this summer to join Bayer Leverkusen, because it is reported that Vincent Kompany does appreciate those two players, but his preference would be Kaoru Mitoma. Remember, last season, as soon as he joined Bayern Munich, one of his first signings was Michael Olise from Crystal Palace, and he's gone on to have a very wonderful season. Even when Jamal Musiala got injured, and he was really making things happen for Bayern Munich. That's Michael Olise, having had a wonderful season at Bayern Munich. But briefly about Barcelona, Barcelona are planning to extend Eric Garcia's contract after refusing, or after declining, an €8 million bid in January from Como, where Cesc Fabregas does really like Eric Garcia. He's one of those players that he really likes and would want to sign to Como, but we'll wait to see. But Barcelona, as of now, they are planning to give him a contract extension to stay at the club. Then, briefly, there's some news at Arsenal. We're going to speak about that in regards to their former acting sporting director in Jason Aito. There's a news there to be had, but let's see. Jonathan Tah, 29-year-old German international, has officially joined Bayern Munich from Bayer Leverkusen as a free agent. He's a player we've spoken about this broadcast before, and then this was according about the news on Kaoru Mitoma, as well as Rafael Leao. This was according to Florian Plettenberg. He did say Kaoru Mitoma has signaled that he is very open to a move to Bayern Munich this summer. Guys, I do not know, but for some reason I do not see your chats here. But I can see we have chats from George. George says hi. How are you? I can see we have Macdagal. Is that that? Forgive my mispronunciation of your names, guys. I think it's Creaky. Then I can see Florisha Young from that's Florisha from Philippines. Good to have you back. Mariam Otto is back with us. She was saying hello, Safa Ali. Hello, my brother. Good to have you, Mariam. Guys, apologies. I do not know what happened, but I seem to have lost uh, my chats here on my screen, so they do not show up, and that's how I missed reading them earlier. But I'm going to use my alternative screen to be reading your chat. So kindly ask your questions and all your engagements. I can see Prince Nkosi says hi, says Wirtz to Liverpool. Is it confirmed? It is not yet confirmed, but what is confirmed is that Florian Wirtz has chosen Liverpool over the likes of Man City, over the likes of Bayern Munich. Never mind that Man City had pulled out of the race last week. So it is not confirmed because the two clubs are now into negotiations over a transfer fee, and it is believed that could be in the region of 130 million euros to about 150 million euros. So the clubs are negotiating over a transfer fee, but the player has chosen Liverpool over Bayern Munich. That's what I can tell you, Prince Nkosi. Florisha Young, good to have you on the broadcast. I can see we had Njabolo from South Africa. Apologies, guys. I do not know why, for some reason, but my chats went off from my screen here, so I was unable to read your chats on time. But I'll do better next time. Probably we'll have fixed that conundrum. But I'll continue to read them off my secondary screen, but it's good to have you. We're still talking about Kaoru Mitoma, about him being open to a move to FC Bayern Munich before I veered off. So, as confirmed by close UK sources, Bayern's interest in the 28-year-old Japanese winger is currently very concrete. Meetings and talks with his agents have already taken place. However, Max Ebel, that's one of the officials at Bayern Munich, has not yet submitted an official offer. Bayern's next steps depend heavily on the situation surrounding Florian Wirtz. Mitoma will be considered a replacement for Coman/Leroy Sané, and that's what I was letting you know there. Liverpool fans, putting all your questions. Manchester United fans, guys, if any of you knows a Manchester United fan, please invite them on the broadcast. I would really, really want to engage Manchester United fans about their club, the situation at the club, what their plans for the summer should be, and we have a conversation. I'm really happy that we've had a good number of Liverpool fans, the likes of Mariam Omoto. We have Prince Nkosi here. We've had Okoyo, among many others. So that's the situation with Kaoru Mitoma. And then about Rafael Leao is that Bayern Munich are currently also looking closely at Rafael Leao. Top agent George Mendes, who is also the agent, I think, for Lamine Yamal, and Max Ibal, that's an official from Germany, have a good relationship, and there has been contact and talks regarding Leao. Bayern Munich are in search for a high-profile signing for the left wing. Kaoru Mitoma is among the top candidates, with Leao currently following behind. He is under contract with AC Milan until June 2028. Mitoma, Leao, and another winger Bayern Munich are currently assessing several profiles. Now, that's according to Florian Plettenbach, a journalist with Sky Germany. So really, really interesting. Then let's move on to Arsenal. Now, Arsenal, earlier on in the day, we did have a news that Arsenal sporting director, at least he did serve in an interim role after Edu Gaspar Daoud left the club. That is, Jason Aito has left the club and will be going on gardening leave. Jason Aito, remember, he was really, really involved in the deal for Martin Zubimendi that will see him switch from Real Sociedad to Arsenal next season, unless a last-minute hiccup does cause the deal an upset. But that is the expectation. So Jason Aito was really, really involved in that. He's been really involved in the core planning for this summer before the coming in of Andre Bata, who was appointed in March. So he is leaving the club after a period of 10 years, and he will be looking for greener pastures elsewhere. I think in the aftermath of having, because he was also in contention for the sporting director role that was competed for the likes of Andre Bata, the Dan Ashworth was in that conversation, but he's since gone to do some work for the English FA and that kind of thing. So, among many other, is it Luis Ocampos, who is at PSG, where he did renew his contract until I think June 2030, was also brought in the mix of that conversation and that kind of thing. So Jason Aito, who was serving as an interim, was a top contender for the role, but eventually it ended to Andrea Butter, because they chose Andrea Butter's experience over Jason Aito, who they deemed did not have sufficient experience in the full role. So remember, at the time, he had been deputizing Edu Gaspar Daoud. So when Edu Gaspar Daoud left to join Evangelos Marinakis, footballing group, because Evangelos Marinakis, the Greek billionaire, does own Olympiacos and Nottingham Forest. He went to be for a more senior role under that group of teams to be, I think, the head of football, something like that. I think in a similar role to that of Jurgen Klopp, because Jurgen Klopp is the head of football at Red Bull clubs. That is Red Bull Salzburg, RB Leipzig, New York Red Bulls, and any other clubs that they do have elsewhere. So that kind of role. So when he left, Jason Aito was the one that replaced him at Arsenal in that role, and he was the one that guided the club through the January transfer window. We know how that one went. They didn't sign anyone and that kind of thing. So really, he's chosen to leave the club, and we will wait to see how everything turns out. Speaking of Arsenal, still, this one was another exclusive that did come during the course of the day. Again, from Florian Wirtz, he did reveal that Arsenal are now in concrete talks with RB Leipzig regarding the signing of Benjamin Sesko. The 21-year-old Serbian international has been linked with a potential move to Arsenal, dating to far back as last summer, but he eventually did sign a new contract with RB Leipzig with a gentleman's agreement that if a suitable offer came for him this summer, he should be allowed to leave the club. And that points us to today's conversation, because according to Marcel Schaffer, as well as Andrea Butter, are in contact, while Arsenal are also monitoring other strikers such as Victor Gyökeres. Their pursuit for Sesko is serious. Mikel Arteta is a big admirer of the 21-year-old forward from RB Leipzig. His release clause for the summer stands at 80 million euros, and he says deal on. So I find 80 million euros as a very plausible fee for a team like Arsenal, who for the longest of time have been trying to search for a striker, a potential replacement for the likes of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who they did not replace, the likes of Alexander Lacazette, who they've lost during this Mikel Arteta era and have not replaced. Really, they should be moving swiftly to avoid any other hiccups, because remember, Chelsea are also interested in the services of Benjamin Sesko. But should things not happen, they are also monitoring the situation with Victor Gyökeres. Again, for our adherent followers here on this channel, you do know for a fact that that Benjamin Sesko is a player we've spoken about widely, as well as Victor Gyökeres. And I did tell you that in as far as Mikel Arteta was concerned, Benjamin Sesko was a priority, because he's the player against whom they've done the most of their groundwork in regards to a player that fits within this Arsenal setup. And there have been question marks across board about whether Victor Gyökeres would perfectly fit in this Arsenal team. Of course, we've had the arguments about who we all know that Victor Gyökeres is much better in his prime, as opposed to Benjamin Sesko, who looks to be another developing striker, having scored about 21 goals across all competitions this season. Last season, he managed about 18 for RB Leipzig and that kind of thing. So you do get the feeling that there's a big disparity between Victor Gyökeres' 62 goals across all competitions so far for club and country this season. And then you look at last season, his numbers were in 40s. In the league alone, he scored about 38. That's for Sporting Lisbon, while Benjamin Sesko has not yet hit those numbers. So for Arsenal fans, I do understand. I am an Arsenal fan, for one. I do understand the desire for having a striker in their prime. But for me, like I said, at the end of the day, whoever the manager chooses, whoever Mikel Arteta decides to choose is the striker we will support, in as long as has Mikel Arteta's backing, and I've seen a lot of reports and analysis in recent days in regards to Benjamin Sesko and how he fits into this Arsenal play. Watched his, hold up play, really, really good movement. His aerial presence and prowesses are really, really good, and that kind of thing. So I do understand why Arsenal are gearing towards or veering towards or tilting towards Benjamin Sesko. But I've also mentioned quite importantly that Arsenal need more than one striker for me going into next season. And that begs the question in regards to what winger they sign. If they do go sign a player like Rodrigo Goes from Real Madrid, whose value is estimated to be about 100 million euros, quite very expensive, to be honest, then because he has the capability of playing anywhere across the front three, from the left, from the right, and in the center, I would then sort of take a chill pill in regards to Arsenal signing two strikers in as far as this transfer window is concerned. But if that is not the case, then I will demand for another striker, because Arsenal do lack an understudy striker. Like we've spoken before, they lost Mika Biriath, who joined Sturm Graz in Australia, where he then left Australia and joined AC Monaco in France. Then they lost Eddie Nketiah to Crystal Palace. Speaking of Eddie Nketiah, scored a brace last week. Was it last week? No. In the course of this week, I think on Tuesday, when we were beating up against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 4-2. He scored a brace in that game. And then they lost Chido Martin Obi at Manchester United. That was the 18-year-old Nigerian international that was upcoming in the academy. They lost that one to Manchester United. They sold off Florian Wirtz to AC Monaco prior to the start of last season. So really, they do lack an understudy striker who can come in and chip in, whether it's in cup competitions, a few Premier League games, and you have that sort of player rotation and avoid the over-reliance. Otherwise, if Arsenal only get one striker, again, I've spoken about the risk before, is that we did see that at the start of last season, where a good player in Urian Timber, who they had just signed, went on to suffer an anterior cruciate ligament injury that kept him for the remainder out for almost an entire season, and he came back really, really late back in the season. So it could really happen to your striker. You sign a good player and you've signed only one striker, he suffers an injury within the first few games of the season, and you're back to square one, where it's Kai Havertz, where it's Mikel Merino playing in the first 9 roles. So that's why, for me, I think Arsenal need more than one striker. Two, so they really, really need that. And with that respect, depending on which striker they sign, for me, I'm open for them going for a player like Liam Delap. I think they can convince such a young player, because he's only 22 years of age as well, that you can come and compete for a place in this Arsenal side and get your playing time. Because Arsenal are going to be playing in the UEFA Champions League, in the Premier League, and of course the cup competitions that usually start. Of course, the FA Cup starts in January for teams like Arsenal, and then the Carabao Cup comes on much earlier on, and that kind of thing. So for you need that kind of squad depth to be playing every 3 days, every 3-4 days, with a pretty decent squad, so that you can give players the rotation they deserve, and then you can click when the moment really comes on in the final third of the season, which is Manchester City have been really good at doing in seasons gone by, when they've gone on to win all those Premier League titles. They've been good at rotating their players, and when the final bend of the season came, which for them started with 16, 15 games, 14 games to play, they were able to go on that run of so many wins and eventually clinch the Premier League titles. So that for me is really, really important when it comes to assessment of Arsenal. Speaking of Arsenal, they also it is reported that Mikel Arteta held some direct talks with Nico Williams over a potential move to Arsenal. But like we spoke, I think it was yesterday, Real Madrid have entered in the conversation to sign Nico Williams from Athletic Bilbao. It's not a hard deal to do in as far as the transfer fee is concerned, because his release clause is about 58 million euros. However, the key difficulty is with the player's wages, because he is on high wages at Athletic Bilbao. And now, I do not think he will be willing to take a pay cut whatsoever. And the reason for that is because Bilbao tend to pay most of their players quite expensively. Sorry, quite well, because majority of all their players come from within that Bilbao region, and when they go out to sign players from, they sign players from nearby domestic clubs, but they really rely on their academy. They will go out to a team like Real Sociedad and sign a player because they are within that region and that kind of thing. So they tend to pay their players really well as a way of enticing them to stay, but also because they are not bought expensively most of the times. So that news is also there. Then, of course, some of the news that really made the rounds, this is outside transfers, was international teams summoning their players. And, of course, we will speak particularly about the UK because Thomas Tuchel did summon players like Ivan Toney, who says he's done really well in the Saudi Pro League. He was asked about the omission of Ben White, and he said Ben White, unfortunately, it wasn't the right moment for him because his wife is expecting their first child, and the due date is during the camp days for the national team, so he kept him out of that. But they spoke about it with the player and that kind of thing. And of course, the likes of Harry Maguire are omitted from that team. Excuse me, guys. Anyways, let's move on and talk. We're still talking about, Arsenal. Now, Arsenal's move for Rodrigo Goes, that deal seems to be a little complicated because it says, Florian Wirtz says, a move involving Rodrigo and Arsenal is proving to be very complicated. There have been new talks in recent hours. The biggest issue is his wage demands, reportedly around 10 million euros net per year. Arsenal are not prepared to go that far. Rodrigo is willing to leave Real Madrid if the right offer comes in. So there you have it. Arsenal are interested in signing Rodrigo Goes, but there seems to be a disparity between the players' wage expectations and what Arsenal are willing to offer, because he is asking for about 10 million euros per annum. That's in net pay. That is after taxes. So really 10 million euros is quite really high. When you divide that by 52 weeks in a year, you're looking at about anywhere between 185,000 pounds, 200,000 pounds per week in terms of wages. I do not know what Arsenal's offer is, but at least that is the expectation, or that is what is being reported from credible sources close to this matter. Anyways, let's leave Arsenal for now, because we've spoken about their player interests. We've spoken about Benjamin Sesko, Victor Gyökeres. We've spoken about Nico Williams. We've spoken about Rodrigo Goes. Maybe there's a defender that they are trying to, that Arsenal are really trying to fight for. That defender, I forget his name, but he's at Club Brugge in Belgium. PSG are interested. Chelsea are in the conversation there for the same defender. So really, I will try to keep our tabs on all those deals so that you do not miss out on any key transfer news in as far as this summer is concerned for the major teams in Europe or in England as well, where usually our concentration is in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So we'll endeavor to keep our eyes out for some of that key news. Anyways, guys, I do not see any new questions unless my feed is not providing them in real time, as I would expect them to be coming, but it doesn't look like they are coming in. Allow me refresh my page and see if you guys are, if we do have any questions from the chat. Yes, there are new chats. I do not know why I'm struggling to receive your chats, but Prince Nkosi said, thanks. Will Cristiano Ronaldo be going to play in the FIFA Club World Cup? Now, apologies, Prince, for answering you late again.
I do not know why, but my chat wasn't refreshing at the right time. But to answer your question, there is an undisclosed club from Brazil that is reported to have offered Cristiano Ronaldo a contract with the hope of taking him to play in the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, that club has not been revealed, whether it's Flamingo, where Jorginho is going to go after leaving Arsenal, whether it's is it Palmeiras, the other side that is going to be representing Brazil at the FIFA Club World Cup. That information is yet to be known, but that rumor has been there. But it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. But previously, we also talked about Al Nassr fans calling for Cristiano Ronaldo to leave the club. They do appreciate everything he's done for them, but they think it's time to move on from him. I think for them maybe to play in a different way and that kind of thing. So I cannot give you a conclusive answer, but that's the speculation that there is a club in Brazil that did offer him an opportunity of a contract to go with him and play at the FIFA Club World Cup. Remember, it's going to be a tournament that will be played once in every 4 years. So really, what that means that for a 40-year-old like Cristiano Ronaldo, this could be his last opportunity for him to feature at the FIFA Club World Cup. So, sorry guys, sorry about that. I tapped the link, but I don't know why am I not seeing being able to see the chats here? Why am I not being able to see the chats here? Okay. Okay, finally, our chat is back. Our chat is back. So, anyways, I've answered all those questions in regards to Prince Nkosi's questions. But guys, if you know any Manchester United fans, please invite them to our broadcasts. Do you think it is time for Cristiano Ronaldo to retire? Maybe not yet. That even though he's a 40-year-old, you do have a 42-year-old goalkeeper in Jose Manuel Pepe Reina still playing in Italy. He's at Como. Of course, he did suffer a red card in today's game as they lost to Inter Milan by 2-0. I think for the way Cristiano Ronaldo looks after himself and his body really at large, he really takes good care of himself, and he's one of those players that he's still in shape. And now, whether he can really still compete at the most top level, that is without doubt has fallen. He's fallen off the pace. And that's why when you watch him play, he's adapted his game to his age. The sprints he makes in a game are ever shrinking. He waits for moments in the game. And even when it comes to, let's say, trying to do a press to try and win the ball back, is really, really reserved in that effort. So for me, I think because of the brand that he has and the pedigree he's built in this game and all that, I think he needs to maybe go to now maybe a different league, maybe like the Major League Soccer. I do not watch the Major League Soccer. I won't lie, guys. I do follow bits of news from here and there in regards to progress in that league because of some of the transfers that they do make. But I think maybe the league there could be slightly slower or could suit him in one way or the other. And not that he will be a prime player there, but yeah, he can go there like the way Wayne Rooney went there. I think he was one of those clubs. And then Thierry Henry has gone there sort of to move his brand there in terms of football, what he would add to the Major League Soccer as a brand, and that kind of thing. So, but he should be looking to retire at least in the next 2 years. Now, the reason as to why I do not think he's going to retire also is because he wants to play at the FIFA World Cup in 2026. He has that objective, really. That is still an objective for him. Remember, he's never won the FIFA World Cup, and Messi, his main competitor, has gone on to win it all. he won what is it called? The Copa America with Argentina. I think they won that twice or once, and then he won the FIFA World Cup with Argentina, the last edition in was it in Qatar, Saudi Arabia? Sorry, in Qatar, yes, in Qatar. That was 2022. So because he's not yet won the World Cup, his ambition is to go play in another FIFA World Cup. And because of that, he's not going to retire. Even if his fans would have wanted him to retire, maybe now. He's not going to do that. So I think he will continue to play football until then. But we will wait to see where he trades his game next. So for me, that's the expectation. That's what I think. Guys, bring in your questions. Bring in more of your questions as we get to discuss all the other things. But I mean, Antonio Conte is a serial winner. I mean, going on to win the league with that Napoli side that didn't really have many stars, for me is absolutely remarkable. Just remarkable. Just remarkable. Then the other news about Liverpool in regards to Florian Wirtz is that Liverpool have already agreed all important personal terms with Florian Wirtz, just like Bayern Munich had. Internally at Liverpool, the club's record transfer had already been approved, as reported today in our show. That was according to Sky Germany. The final years from the player came today. Anna Slot personally spoke with Wirtz. Liverpool are now preparing the official offer. Leverkusen are very optimistic that an agreement with Liverpool will be reached shortly, but Wirtz turned down Bayern today. So that's another update that was another update from Florian Plettenberg, the Sky German reporter, in regards to that. In regards to the Florian Wirtz deal. I mean, I was speaking about Antonio Conte briefly there, and he's gone on to do remarkable history as far as the Italian league is concerned, because this is his fifth Scudetto, because he won 3 with Juventus, he won 1 with Inter Milan, and then he's won 1 with with Napoli. And then in terms of league titles, he did win 1 with Chelsea. So really, he's the serial winner. I think the trophy that he's not won in his managerial career so far, the big trophy is the UEFA Champions League. I don't think he's won that yet, because he's not yet won that, really. So anyways, let's wait and see more on what's to come in regards to everything, transfers. We've spoken about Kevin De Bruyne, we've spoken about Florian Wirtz, we've spoken about Benjamin Sesko, we've spoken about Bruno Fernandez, and all the likes. So, I mean, it's going to be a busy week for us here this week and next week. So really expect plenty of things, of news to be streaming through in regards to transfers, among other things. The managers, of course, yes, speaking about Real Madrid, there's going to be a farewell party or occasion at the Santiago Bernabeu on Sunday as they bid farewell to Carlo Ancelotti, as well as Luka Modric. Luka Modric had requested to take a pay cut at the club to have his contract extended for a further year, but that was not possible. The club declined that request, saying that they do want to move on. They want the new players to sort of fit in. Remember, Real Madrid had really planned their transition well to move away from the midfield of Casemiro, Toni Kroos, and Luka Modric by bringing in players like Eduardo Camavinga, Fede Valverde, Aurelio Tchouameni, and that kind of thing. So I can see Prince Nkosi here is asking Napoli and Kevin De Bruyne. Yes, Kevin De Bruyne has given Napoli the green light to join them after when he leaves Manchester City. Now, the two parties are already in negotiations of the decision is about the contract. Should it be a 2-year contract with an option to extend for a further year, or a 3-year contract at once? Now, the player Kevin De Bruyne would prefer a 3-year contract because he's still 33 years of age. I think Italy will suit him. The game there is a bit slow paced, and over the years has sort of become less physical as compared to the Premier League. So I do feel it's a league that would really suit him unless he gets disturbed by injuries, like he has been in the latter years of his career at Manchester City. So he's given the green light, and he wants that deal sealed before he goes away for his vacation during the summer. So we're just waiting for here we go. But he has given the green light that he will be joining Napoli if everything else can be ironed out in regards to the contract there between him and the club. So, speaking about Luka Modric, he will be leaving the club. Also, he will play his last game at the Santiago Bernabeu this weekend when Real Madrid play Real Sociedad. But also, Carlo Ancelotti will be managing his last game for Real Madrid because he's going to be the Brazil national team coach. That's for Carlo Ancelotti. We also spoke about his son earlier on today, who is being linked with the vacant role at Rangers in Scotland. And so Luka Modric is not retiring from football, at least from what he did announce, but he will be part of the Real Madrid squad that will represent the club at the FIFA Club World Cup. So Luka Modric is still around, only that the FIFA Club World Cup is going to be played in America. So tomorrow will be the last time they will be seeing him at the Santiago Bernabeu. Then, sorry, not tomorrow, I think Sunday. Then, of course, Rangers did also speak to Steven Gerrard because he's been out of work ever since he left Al Ittihad. So that's in the Saudi Pro League for a potential return at Rangers. That's the place is called Ibrox. That's a Rangers home. He did guide them to the Scottish Premiership title back in 2021. He was really doing a good job. That's where Aston Villa really saw him and pulled him back to English football, but things burnt his fingers with Aston Villa before Aston Villa brought Unai Emery, who had to leave Villarreal midway the season, having managed to guide them to the triumph of the UEFA Europa League in 2021 when they beat Manchester United 11-10 on penalties in that final. Goals in normal time, 1-1 draw scored by Gerard Moreno and Edson Cavani, respectively, for either sides. Prince asks Bournemouth and Semenyo rumors. Now, Antoine Semenyo is a player that has been linked to a couple of clubs, including Manchester United, including Arsenal, as well as Chelsea, and it is expected that Bournemouth would ask for a fee in the region of about 50 to 70 million pounds to let go of Antoine Semenyo. But those rumors have been around. No club has really made concrete moves to sign him. We'll wait to see. Earlier last week, I think late last week, there were reports that Manchester United had held, conversations about Antoine Semenyo, but let's wait and see. But I think he, in as far as Antoine Semenyo is concerned, he could be on the move if Bournemouth, if good offers do come for Bournemouth. He's a player that they will be willing to lose, and because those mid-table teams are really about making money. They're really about making money, and he's not been at the club for long because he joined them in January 2023 for about 10.3 million pounds when he was joining them from Bristol. I think Bristol City. That's when he was joining them. But Liverpool, Chelsea, as well as Man United and Arsenal have been mentioned. Have reported interest in the player. Is when they are watching. Then you ask for the latest about Bellingham Jr. Yes, he's called Job Bellingham. Job Bellingham. Now, the teams that are interested, it's Borussia Dortmund that are leading the pursuit for Job Bellingham, who they really want to sign. And again, we'll wait to see how that also fares in as far as this transfer window particularly goes. Then Eze at Crystal Palace, when it comes to Ebelechi Eze, now again, Arsenal and Chelsea have been mentioned in the conversation for Eberechi Eze. Would cost any club that wants him anywhere between 45 to 50 million pounds if they want to sign him from Crystal Palace. But again, Chelsea have been the front runners in that kind of conversation for Eberechi Eze, although he has potential suitors in Arsenal. And then, of course, Chelsea's Enzo Fernandez has attracted interest from Real Madrid, but Chelsea are not willing to sell Enzo Fernandez because they see him as a very, very crucial part of their project with Enzo Maresca. They see him as a very crucial part. He has a 20-goal contribution so far this season, having scored 7 goals and provided 13 assists. That's his best, I think, contribution tally ever since joining them in January 2023 from Benfica in what was a record transfer fee at the time of 121 million euros. That's for the World Cup winner with Germany. So where do you think he would be a perfect fit? Are you asking about Eberechi Eze, where he would be a perfect fit? I think he would suit, and maybe there is a selfish bit to this particular assessment. I would think he would suit a team like Arsenal and Chelsea, one of those two. I think he would really suit them well. He's a good ball carrier in a number 10 role, and I think his style of play can be adaptive to both teams, to the way they play, he would be that kind of player that would maybe help a team like Arsenal or Chelsea sort of lead the press. He's good, he's energetic, he's no longer a young kid. He's a player, by the way, who started his career at the Arsenal Academy, I think at the age of 5 until the age of 13. Then when he was let go at the age of 13, he went on to join Fulham, I think, where he was for about 2 years, and then they let him go. When they let him go after about 2.5 years, he ended up at Millwall. No, he ended up at QPR, and then from QPR, he was loaned to Millwall, and then when he returned to QPR, that was for 2017, 2018. That's when he was that side. And then after 2019-2020 season, he had a very, very good season with QPR, scored about 8 goals and 14 assists. No, scored about 14 goals and 8 assists. Then that's when Crystal Palace really, he caught Crystal Palace's eye, and they signed him in August. That was in August 2020, and he joined Crystal Palace. So he's really, really had a wonderful time. So, but about Job Bellingham, still young. I mean, only 19 years of age, still at Sunderland. But I mean, that's the kind of route path that his brother took. So I think his brother would encourage him to join Borussia Dortmund, because Dortmund really have room for young players. Look at players like Jamie Gittens, who is at Borussia Dortmund, still making things happen. And then you ask about Cole Palmer as a play a similar style, don't you think? Yes, they do play a similar style, but if this season is anything to go by, we did see Cole Palmer go have a spell of 18 games where he did not score any goals. And even when you have a Cole Palmer for a team like Chelsea, it wouldn't hurt you to have a player like Eberechi Eze who can be a substitute for Cole Palmer. So because you need the squad depth, if things are the way they are, then Chelsea are going to qualify for Europe, whether it's the Champions League or the UEFA Europa League. You need that bit of squad depth. And also Chelsea are a team that go on to sign any player that is available. I mean, take nothing away from them. In any case, look
Look at all the players they've signed. They also have a player called Andre Santos. He's been on loan to Strasbourg. They bought him for about, I think, for about 18 million pounds from Vasco da Gama. That's in Brazil, I think. And they loaned him out. He's a player that has also been linked with a potential move to Arsenal. While we're there all shouting that maybe Arsenal should be considering players like Oihan Sunset at Athletic Bilbao, players like Alex Baina at Villarreal, players like Ryan Chetty at Lyon, and then out of the blue, we had links linking, Arsenal among other teams with the potential move to Andre Santos, who is owned by Chelsea, who is on loan at Strasbourg in the French League One. So while they're a bit similar, I do think, because remember, Cole Palmer is also a player that you can play off the wing. They can also play in the same team, depending on how you set up. But it really wouldn't hurt to have them both players in the same team. But I do understand what you mean when you question them being in the same team. Of course, it means one gets to start over the other, and yet they are both potential starters. But for me, even when I link him with the potential move to Arsenal, it simply means he would be a squad player, maybe a potential replacement for a Martin Odegaard. Although I would prefer a more creative midfielder, a player that is more creative. Even when Bereche Eze is good, I look at him a little bit in the mold of an Aaron Ramsey, has more eye for goal as opposed to being the player that assists the goal and that kind of thing. So for me, that's the angle in which I look at things in. So really quite interesting in terms of style. But that is a good school of thought that you did introduce to this conversation for the comparison between Cole Palmer and Ebelechi Eze. Although Cole Palmer has more eye for goal, good with set pieces and that kind of thing. So So, anyways, we've spoken about Alejandro Garnacho. We've spoken about Anthony, who is really firing things up at Real Betis, because he's since scored 9 goals and provided 5 assists since joining them from Manchester United on loan. And the expectation is that Manchester United will be seeking a permanent move away from Manchester United. And this is what he had to say in the aftermath of today's game, because today they were playing up against Valencia. Yes, they were up against Valencia in tonight's fixture. I'm trying to find out how that game has ended between Valencia and Real Betis. Yeah, it ended in a 1-1 draw. Anthony scored in that game. So, and here is what he had to say in the aftermath of that very game. He says, "Here at Betis, I'm happy when I go to sleep and when I wake up. All day happy. I don't know what's going to happen with my future, but I'm so happy here. The fans are incredible." That's Anthony saying. You say Eze and Saka in the same team would be interesting. Yeah, that would be quite interesting. Him as
Apologies for that. Sorry. My apologies for that. My microphone went out of battery, and my test device was muted. Because I expect these kinds of things to happen. But apologies on that, and thank you for alerting me, Priest, on that. Thank you for alerting me about the audios. Yeah, sometimes they do run out of battery. Good. So, like I was saying, I was speaking about Phil Foden, who has had a very long season. It's not really happened for him. And Man City, Pep Guardiola, we're talking about, protecting him. Of course, I do not think he's in the England squad that is going to be playing a friendly with Senegal, I think, and then they have a game with Honduras, maybe. I stand to be corrected on those two, but at least, yeah, those are some of the games that they will be playing. Then we've spoken about Livramento, potential move to Man City because they're looking at him as the right back. Then the other interesting player for me that I was speaking about the other day was Mason Greenwood, who is really making things happen. He's making things happen at Olympique Marseille, and I think he's joint top scorer with Ousmane Dembele in as far as the league is concerned. So yes, here are the facts I wanted to bring to your knowledge in regards to Eberechi Eze. At 13, he was released by Arsenal, and he shared this story, and he said he remembers crying really so much when he was let go by Arsenal, and his mom comforting him, telling him it will be okay. Then he got picked up by Fulham. He went to Fulham and spent there 3 years. That was between 13 to 16. He got released, and then he went to Reading until the end of the season. So he spent some time at Reading there. After that, he was stranded after leaving Reading, and then he got a chance at Millwall, where he spent 2 years as a scholar. You know when you're still young, there are those scholarships clubs give as a student player in the academy, that kind of thing. So he spent 2 years there, and then after 2 years, that's when he joined QPR. When he joined QPR, they let him out on loan to a club called Wycombe. That's where he was on loan in League Two for the season of 2017-2018. 2017-2018. He played there 20 games and provided 5 assists. And then the following season, QPR had retained him for the 2019. Sorry, yes. There's a season there that he didn't mention about. That's the season of 2018-2019. But in the 2019-2020 season, that was his breakthrough season, like I said. 48 games played, 14 goals and 8 assists made, and that's when he caught and he was nominated for Championship Player of the Year. He didn't win it, but he was among the nominees. And then in 2020, he joined Crystal Palace for about 18 million euros. And ever since then, that was as a 22-year-old. Present day, about 27 years of age. He's never looked back, and that's his story. It's that kind of beautiful story, but also a bit sad. He's an Arsenal fan, and he would really relish a move to Arsenal. That's the dream team that he would love to join. It's a little bit similar to what's happening with Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins is an Arsenal fan, and he had loved the idea of potentially joining Arsenal in January because Aston Villa offered Ollie Watkins to Arsenal. However, the two sides could not agree to the valuation of the player. Arsenal valued the player at about £40 million because he's 29 years of age, soon turning 30, and then maybe who knows, 2-3 years time could be out of his prime. And then Aston Villa valued the player at about £60 million. So that was the disparity between the two parties, and Arsenal eventually ended up not signing him. Of course, Aston Villa were in a way a bit happy to keep him because they had lost John Duran, who had signed who had gone to the Saudi Pro League because they needed to sell to try and balance their books when it came to the PSR rules. That's the profit and sustainability rules of the Premier League, for which Leicester City are being investigated. Speaking of Aston Villa, their goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez could leave the club this summer. Manchester United are interested. Barcelona are reported to be interested, but for me, I question the links of Barcelona, because when you have a player like Andres Mark ter Stegen, when you have a player like Szczesny, who are you trying to give a year contract extension, and of course Deco, their director, spoke about him. He spoke about their goalkeeping situation, and he said, yes, they still have those two, but they do know that in a year or 2 years' time, they will be interested in signing the goalkeeper. But they also have some goalkeepers in the La Masia, in the academy, so that they could look up to. I think he would shine at Bayern Munich, but I don't think company would be interested in him. Who are you speaking about specifically? Is it Emiliano Martinez or Eberechi Eze or Oli Watkins? Kindly clarify for me, please, on that before I respond to that. Let me hope we still have battery. Yes, we're still good. So, with that respect, speaking about Emiliano Martinez. Oh, you're talking about Eberechi Eze. They've not really considered him. But they are looking for that number 10 kind of player, and that's why they were really interested in signing Florian Wirtz, because he does tick all the boxes for a team like Bayern Munich. Remember, years gone by, they've gone on to sign players like Mario Götze at his prime when he was still at Dortmund. They did want to sign Marco Reus, although for him he refused. But they do need that kind of number 10 to help Jamal Musiala, who is in that role. But right now they're going to prioritize the winger because they want to replace Leroy Sané as well as Kingsley Coman. But Bayern Munich, maybe if you're Bayern Munich and you're looking at a player like Kaoru Mitoma, who is 28 years of age, you're considering Rafael Leao. Now, for me, the challenge with Rafael Leao is a very good player, but the consistency to sort of be there every now and then, and also to keep on wanting to keep on growing. For me, that's a bit lacking, and maybe it could be an issue with the overall team, AC Milan, because AC Milan have sort of fallen off the wagon ever since winning the Scudetto with Stefan Pioli. I had Antony might join Bayern Munich. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be really surprised, but let's wait and see. Because one thing is for sure is Manchester United are willing to let the player go. The player wants to leave because, like he just gave in those post-match comments, he's really happy at Real Betis. Now, the challenge for Real Betis is that they may not have the money sufficient to buy Antony, even when Manchester United are willing to sell. Then that takes them to an option for another season-long loan with an obligation to buy. Again, you know, when it comes to Spanish La Liga teams as well, some usually tend to apply for majority of Italian Serie A teams, is that their finances are not as deep as those of some even mid-table Premier League clubs. Because you look at a team like Aston Villa, who a couple of years ago were spending big money to sign Moussa Diaby, who they then let go after, I think, one season to go to the Saudi Pro League. They really have the capabilities of going on to sign a very expensive player. And you look at teams like Newcastle, the kinds of players they are able to afford. Look at Alexander Isak. You look at Everton. Just a couple of years ago, they were signing Moises Kean for about 40 million euros and something. Mr. 200 IQ 86, good to have you back. Good to have you back. Welcome back to the channel. You say we are champions, Spurs. Okay, congratulations. As much as I hate to say this, because I'm an Arsenal fan, I must acknowledge congratulations to you on winning the Europa League. Kudos to you. You played a very bad game between you and Manchester United, but you won. That is all that will count at the end of the day. If they win the conference, I'm sure they can afford him Don't you think? Again, winning the UEFA Conference League does not really give you. It doesn't give you a lot of money. That's the thing. Yes, they will have made some money in regards to in regards to stadium collection and everything in that respect, but it doesn't give you a lot of money. Let's take an example that let's say Manchester United, because the Manchester United bought the player for a fee of about 80 million euros. Now, of course, they're not going to recoup that back, assuming they were willing to settle for about 40 to 45 million euros. Real Betis are willing to spend that. And yet, for me, I think it will be a worthy investment because they've tested the player. It's really worked out. He's happy. He's doing well. You could buy him at that, and in 2 seasons' time, the big boys come calling. Barcelona comes calling. Maybe Real Madrid comes calling. Maybe Bayern Munich comes calling because the player would have changed his fortunes and that kind of thing. So when you look at Real Betis, currently they are 6th on the Spanish La Liga table, and I think that's a UEFA Europa League position. I stand to be corrected, but it is a UEFA Europa League position because Barcelona, yes, because Barcelona went up to the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, and then Real Madrid were in the quarterfinals. That gives Barcelona an extra slot for the UEFA Champions League qualification. So instead of taking just 4 teams, then they get to take 5 teams. So, which is Villarreal, Athletic Bilbao, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona. So that means Betis have already qualified for the UEFA Europa League. So even when they win the UEFA Conference League, it only qualifies them for the UEFA Europa League, which means slightly more money as compared to the other competition. But maybe, yes, maybe that could motivate them to, sort of spend the money on the player. You say if they win, okay, we've spoken to that. Congratulations on 3-time getting second. Mr. IQ. Mr. IQ is giving me stick as an Arsenal fan. We'll take it. We'll take it. And again, there's been a raging debate about who's had a better season in comparison to Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal. Of course, Tottenham Hotspurs are winning that UEFA Europa League. Mr. IQ, let me ask you, as a Tottenham fan, are you for Ange Postecoglou staying or you're for Ange Postecoglou out, even after winning the UEFA Europa League? Please let us know. Prince, you say, can't they extend the loan spell if they really want to keep him? Yes, but again, they can extend the loan spell perhaps with an obligation to buy for a certain fee that can be pre-agreed. That's if Manchester United are open to that kind of arrangement. But I think the preference for Manchester United, and one of the reasons as to why they loaned him out, is that they wanted the player to get more playing time, perhaps find his form, and then so that he can command a higher transfer fee when the transfer window eventually comes. And he's really done that well. So when you look at because he's only 25 years of age, so his value, he's still well within his prime in terms of age. So because of the goal contributions he's had at Real Betis, now Manchester United have a bit of negotiating power to say, look at the kind of player you're taking. He has posted these numbers in this short kind of period and that kind of thing. So maybe that's the option they will be looking to do. But let's wait and see where that conversation ends between Manchester United, Real Betis, and any other suitors. Because I think Manuel Pellegrini, who is the Real Betis manager, was speaking some time back and said they would love to keep Anthony. And one of the club officials did allude to the same thing, that they would love to keep the player, given what he has been able to contribute in such a short spell for the club. So let's wait and see how that everything goes in that respect. But Mr. 200 IQ 86, come back and answer my question. Are you Ange Postecoglou in or you Ange Postecoglou out, even after winning that UEFA Europa League? I mean, you're congratulating me on finishing third for the second time. You've lost 21 games in the league. I mean, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? Anyways, it is what it is. It is what it is. Maybe the other thing we didn't speak about was Bayer Leverkusen about their vacant managerial position, because they are looking to hire Erik ten Hag, who did say he is available to take up the role. Initially, Bayer Leverkusen had wanted to take Francesco Fabregas, who is currently the manager at Como, having guided his team to a 10th-place finish on the Italian Serie A table for their debut season in the Italian Serie A. Is it their debut? Okay, since earning their promotion to the Italian Serie A. So, and yet he's a minority. I think he's a minority shareholder in the club, as well as Thierry Henry, among other shareholders. But he has since given his commitment to the club that he will be staying with them for another season, despite strong interest from the likes of the Red Bull group that we spoke about, that are being led by Jurgen Klopp in terms of the footballing affairs, as well as Bayer Leverkusen. Now, Bayer Leverkusen have since turned their attention to the former Manchester United manager in Erik ten Hag, who has said he is available to take up the role. So that deal, be sure, could move quickly, and he gets the job. So we'll keep an eye on that one as well. Prince, you come back to say, what's the latest on Marcus Rashford? Now, because he suffered an injury that has kept him out for the last couple of games for Aston Villa, and of course he can't play on the final day because Aston Villa do play Manchester United at Old Trafford, and it is on loan from Manchester United. Conversations around him had cooled down, but this week, I think it was yesterday, the Barcelona football director or sporting director, that's Deco. For those of you that do remember, he did also play for Chelsea at some point, because he's one of the players that Pep Guardiola kicked out when he took on the reins from Frank Rijkaard back in the days. So he did say that they do hold interest in Marcus Rashford and Luis Diaz of Liverpool. Now, Marcus Rashford, only 27 years of age, he did say, according to reports in the UK, that he would be willing to take a pay cut or a wage cut to be able to join Barcelona. So remember, Barcelona want to sign a winger, and they are looking at those two. So, but then also Aston Villa had expressed interest in wanting to, keep him. But of course, if he has to choose between Aston Villa and Barcelona, I think we all know where he would choose. I think he would choose Barcelona because who doesn't want to play for Barcelona or Real Madrid? Those are some of the gigantic teams, especially when you're going for Manchester United, being an unwanted figure. You've gone on loan to Aston Villa, which has been very, very, very good and kind to him. So reports were saying he's willing to take a wage cut to be able to join Barcelona. And then the report was that Aston Villa were willing to retain him if Manchester United could agree to a transfer fee of about £40 million in that line. So again, let the season end and we will see what kind of conversations do revolve around those players. Anthony, Marcus Rashford, Alejandro Garnacho, who we've spoken about in relation to potential move to Chelsea and Napoli, and maybe there will be other new suitors depending. So those are some of the players that we do expect to leave Manchester United, in addition to the likes of Christian Eriksen, Johnny Evans, Tyler Malacia, who is on loan to PSV, players like, of course, they would have loved to let Casemiro go because he's on really high wages. They are trying to take down their wage bill, but Casemiro did say for him he wants to see out the remainder of his contract because he wants to stay in Europe, but in Europe, there's not any team that is interested in him that would be willing to pay him the kind of wages that Manchester United are paying him, which is north of £300,000 per week. So, really, that's the conversation. Then Christian Eriksen, we'll mention that one. Then Manchester United are open to letting go of Rasmus Højlund, and there's interest in Rasmus Højlund from Juventus, from Inter Milan, as well as Napoli. Those are the teams that are interested in his services. Now, Napoli having won the Scudetto, of course, they're going to play in the UEFA Champions League, where they've not played in this season. And I do not think, did they have any European football? stand to be corrected. But because they've been out of the UEFA Champions League, they're going to need to strengthen their squad to be able to compete in the UEFA Champions League, and that's why they are going for players like Kevin De Bruyne with all his experience. They do need a striker because they can't rely on Lukaku forever, and that kind of thing. So they need so many player additions. So they are interested in Rasmus Højlund. Remember, to join Manchester United, he came from Italy. He was at Atlanta, where he came from to join Manchester United in a deal that was worth about 2 million pounds. Then Manchester United are also open to letting go of Joshua Zirkzee, the 23-year-old, who has really had a difficult start to his spell at Manchester United. And with that respect, they are interested in signing Liam Delap as well as Victor Gyökeres for their striking replacements. So those are expected departures for Manchester United. And then Bruno Fernandez, that one we've spoken about extensively because of the interest from Al Hilal as well as Real Madrid, because Real Madrid are looking to make a marquee signing for their midfield. We spoke about their transition that they wanted to do with Fede Valverde, Tchouaméni, and Camavinga. We all know that Camavinga is right now out injured, and then things have not yet really clicked in full strength for that midfield trio of Fede Valverde, of Aurelio Tchouaméni, and Eduardo Camavinga. So Real Madrid want a replacement for Luka Modric, and they were considering Bruno Fernandez as well as Enzo Fernandez from Chelsea. You said Jonathan David from Lille. Yes, Jonathan David from Lille, that's the Canadian striker, has had a wonderful season, but his contract will be running out and chose not to renew. Reports did suggest that he had an offer from Napoli, but again, then English clubs were reported to be interested. Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal were in that conversation, but none of them has really made headway in recent weeks to try and secure the signature of Jonathan David. And I mean, I really don't know if there's any club that has made progress, but what was reported was that Napoli had an offer on table for him to join them as a free agent. Now, of course, Italian teams are very prone to signing free agents. They really consider that. Eduardo Camavinga rumors to Manchester City. Anyway, let's get to that in just a bit, because we're speaking about Jonathan David. I mean, he's posted good numbers: 16 goals and 5 assists in the League One in 32 games. Is a good return of a goal contribution. That's about 21, and he's also still just 25 years of age. Eduardo Camavinga to Manchester City. I do not think so. Because Eduardo Camavinga is a holding midfielder. Manchester City have welcomed back Rodri from injury. He did come off the bench in their 3-1 victory against Bournemouth on Tuesday, and then he's expected to be on the bench when they make the trip to what's their final game? I'm forgetting their. Somebody remind me their final game of the season. They do have the final game of the season against Fulham. Yes, they do play Fulham on the weekend. So Eduardo Camavinga, remember, do not forget, Manchester City signed Nico Gonzalez from FC Porto in January, and then they also signed Kushanov. So I really do not see that deal really happening. And then remember, we've spoken about Tijan Reinders, or there was some may choose to pronounce it Tijan, but it's Tijan Reinders from AC Milan, who they are trying to pursue. The 26-year-old Dutch international midfielder predominantly plays as a number 8, although he can also play as a number 6. He scored about 10 goals, I think, in the Italian Serie A this season. So he's the player that they're really pursuing. And of course, they wanted to sign Florian Wirtz, but now they will have to turn their attention to Morgan Gibbs-White, because they are interested in signing Morgan Gibbs-White. And that was the conversation was that should they fail to get Florian Wirtz, then they will turn their attention to Morgan Gibbs-White from Nottingham Forest, and I do know that Nottingham Forest are trying to give Morgan Gibbs-White a new contract. They are trying to extend his contract, as well as that of Callum Hudson-Odoi, and that of Anthony Elanga. That's for Nottingham Forest. You ask, Real Madrid hijack Arsenal target Zubimendi. Is it possible? I cannot say it is. I cannot say it is impossible, because anything can happen in the world of football. And like I continuously say, until you see a player holding that shirt of another team after signing the papers, after putting pen to paper, and they're holding up that jersey and they're taking the photos, you can never say never. Why? Because we've seen players do medicals, complete medicals, and everything required at club A and then join club B. It happened. William Borges de Silva, I think he was coming from, was it CSK Moscow or Spartak Moscow? But he was coming from Russia. He was destined for a move to Tottenham Hotspur, and he ended up at Chelsea. Mikel Obi, he was destined for a move to Manchester United. He ended up at Chelsea. Then the other player, I think it was Robinho. Robinho was destined for Chelsea, ended up at Man City. Sami Nasri was destined for a move to Manchester United, ended up at Manchester City. Of course, those ones didn't do medicals, but very recently, Arnold Danjuma was one of those players. I think he ended up at Everton. So we can never say never. But what is widely, I believe, around Arsenal is that the deal for Martin Zubimendi is as good as done. The two parties are simply waiting for the season to end and then put to paper. Personal terms were agreed, transfer fees between the club, because remember the report was that he had a 60 million euro release clause, but Arsenal offered to pay more so that they are allowed to spread their payments over, as opposed to paying in one bulk, because the policy with Spain is that when a player has a release clause, you have to pay that release clause as a wholesome fee. And yet usually what these clubs do, because of PSR rules, because of UEFA financial fair play rules and things of that nature, to stay on course or fitted within those parameters, what they do is that if they are signing, let's say, a player like Martin Zubimendi, okay, let's use the example of Moises Caicedo from Brighton to Chelsea. They will spread the payments over several installments. The other example is that of Dean Howson from FC Bournemouth to Real Madrid. He had a £50 million release clause, but according to the contract, it allowed the buying club to pay the money in 3 different installments. So the club will say, let's say we are going to sign the player to a 5-year contract, and if we are buying the player for £100 million, then we'll be paying you maybe £20 million every year. So usually payments are spread that way. Or they could say, right now, if we are buying the player £100 million, we're going to pay £40 million in cash, and then we will spread the other £60 million across a period of maybe 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, depending on what the agreement is on payment terms. And I think you've had it before that clubs agree on a transfer fee, a player agrees to contract terms and everything, and then the clubs fail to agree on payment terms. So they agree on a fee for the player, but they disagree on payment terms. So usually the disparity comes in that angle, that they disagree. Maybe club A wants maybe the money paid in 2 installments or 3 installments, while the other club is offering to pay it in more installments. The other example we can use is that of Chelsea. One of the reasons as to why Chelsea was able to spend more than £1 billion on players in a space of about 2 years is because they were signing these players on very long-term contracts. And because of that, they were spreading their payments over the length of those very contracts. So that's how they are able to manage it and stay within the parameters of the profit and sustainability rules of the Premier League, as well as the UEFA financial fair play rules. So, in regards to the deal for Martin Zubimendi, I do not think Madrid will be able to hijack it because he turned down Madrid, Barcelona, and Liverpool. He eventually agreed to a deal to move to Arsenal, which is believed that Mikel Arteta was pushed in convincing him to join Arsenal over the other clubs. But Arsenal have held a long-term interest in Martin Zubimendi. You ask your top 3 teams for next season, who wins the league, runners-up, and who is third English Premier League 2025-2026 season. Very good question there, Prince. But again, it's a bit of a difficult one for me to answer right now because I do not know how the different teams are going to behave in the transfer window. Because for me, usually, even when I do my season predictions before the transfer window closes, I put there that disclaimer that it is subject to change depending on what kind of business teams do in the transfer window. However, I'll make these assumptions. One, if Arsenal go in the transfer window and buy a striker or at least 2 strikers, a goalkeeper, and Joan Garcia has been heavily linked with the potential move to Arsenal. If they do get themselves a creative midfielder and then a winger, so those are 5 players, 2 strikers, a winger, a creative midfielder, and a goalkeeper. You get. Then I may be inclined to tipping them for the Premier League title next season. Remember, a lot of pressure is going to be on Mikel Arteta. He's built his project for the last 5 years, and the icing on the cake is going on to win a major piece of silverware, and that's either the UEFA Champions League or the Premier League title. Not an FA Cup, not a Carabao Cup, not a Community Shield, nothing. So that's the bare minimum. But Arsenal need to do that. But also, if then they are letting go of Akian Tiane, who is going to leave and join Celtic, then if they are letting go of Zinchenko, then they will need to sign a player in the left back position. Also, they may need a centre back. Why? Because they do not have a direct replacement for a player like William Saliba. I know the argument for some Arsenal fans is that they do have Ben White and Julian Timber, who both play as right backs, but we all know they can't play in centre back positions, especially Ben White, who was a centre back at Brighton and Hove Albion as well as Leeds during his long spell there. So that is that. Then in that midfield, one, when you sign Martin Zubimendi, again, I'll wait to see if they can agree to a new contract with Thomas Partey, who remains as a backup holding midfielder, who, by the way, is a different holding midfielder for me, because I look at Martin Zubimendi as a replacement for Jorginho, because they are similar in playing style and quite inversely opposite in comparison to Thomas Partey. Then a support player that is going to support Martin Odegaard, to a winger, and that's why they are looking at players like Rodrigo Goes as well as Nico Williams, but they need 2 strikers. So for me, if they get that correct, because last season they let go Fabio Vieira, didn't replace him. Wes Nelson went out on loan, not replaced. Emil Smith-Rowe left, not replaced. Eddie Nketiah left, not replaced. So it left them really short on numbers, not just on numbers, but also in terms of quality. That's why you've been seeing players like Oedeji. So if Arsenal behave in that manner in the transfer window, then I will tip them for the Premier League title. In number 2 will be Liverpool. Why? Liverpool have been so good this season. At least they've been consistent. 2, they are going to be quite robust. They're going to attack the transfer market. They've already done that. They're signing Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen in a deal worth about 35 million euros to about 40 there as a replacement for Alexander Trent-Arnold, while retaining Conor Bradley, who has been the understudy for Alexander Trent-Arnold. 2, they are looking to sign Milos Kakes who was in my team of the season, my Premier League team of the season, they are looking to sign him from FC Bournemouth. Then chances are they're going to sign Florian Wirtz in that number 10 role, and then they will be looking to sign a striker should Darwin Núñez leave. And Napoli, among other clubs, are interested in signing Darwin Núñez as well as Saudi Pro League clubs. Remember, their primary interest is in Alexander Isak, who Arsenal are also were interested in signing, but they quickly realized that that deal may be a little too hard to pull off and moved on to other options. That's why they started holding conversations for Benjamin Sesko with Victor Gyökeres as an alternative. And on that respect, Liverpool have also been linked with the potential move for Hugo Ekitike. Remember last summer, Liverpool did not spend much. The only player they managed to sign was Federico Chiesa, who they got for about £12 million. And speaking of Federico Chiesa, Napoli are interested in taking him on a season-long loan, potentially with an option to buy. So that conversation is also there too. Liverpool will need a holding midfielder, somebody to support Wataru Endo and Ryan Gravenberch, because Arne Slot was speaking about Ryan Gravenberch, and it was told to him from the onset that while he can play as a number 6, he doesn't really love that position. He prefers to play as a number 8, which is where Dominic Szoboszlai plays. So when they get Florian Wirtz, get a number 6, get a striker, and then all those positions are filled. They are also looking for a centre back because Joel Quash, I do not know if I pronounce his name well, is attracting interest from other, clubs. Then the Valencia goalkeeper, I do not know why his name keeps on slipping out of my mind, is joining Liverpool, and clubs are interested in signing Kelleher out there. So really, that's going to be interesting. So for me, I'll put Liverpool in number 2. In number 3, I'll put Manchester City. And the reason as to why I put them in number 3 is I believe Pep Guardiola is going to go out in the market, which he already did in January. They spent about close to £200 million when they signed Victor Reis from Pyramides. That's the 19-year-old centre back. They signed Kushanov, they signed Nico Gonzalez, and Omar Mamouche. Omar Mamouche has so far been a success. Nico Gonzalez scored the third goal on Tuesday when they were beating up against FC Bournemouth. So I think they're going to go in the market. They're going to further strengthen that team. They will have Rodri back, which will make them a whole different team because it makes them much better. That team really revolves around him or plays on his strength. And then they're going to let go of aging players, the likes of John Stones. Kyle Walker is going to be out. Of course, De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan could leave, as well as Mateo Kovacic. Those kinds of players could leave. Have I mentioned John Stones? Maybe. So Bernardo Silva could be on his way out of the club. So because many of those players are going to be new, I feel that over the course of the season, if they do qualify for Champions League football, which I believe they are going to do, may cost them along the whole of the season, but they will eventually finish third. And then fourth place, it could be for Chelsea to take next season. But of course, Newcastle will be well within it. Aston Villa, I expect there to be a very stiff competition. So that's for now. That's my anticipation. That's my prediction. But by the time the transfer window ends, that opinion could have shifted depending on how all sides that are involved in the mix of that conversation do behave in the transfer window. Because Newcastle are also looking for a striker. They've been linked with a potential move for Liam Delap. They are looking to add to their squad. They are looking for a centre back. They are looking at signing Mark Dehi from Crystal Palace, who is also attracting interest from Chelsea. So really, I'm waiting to see how they behave. You come back to say, you come back to say Arsenal, if they buy a striker, if they buy a top striker, like, is that Zaxi or Gyökeres? I think, did you mean Sesko? Okay, whoever that is, Zaxi or Victor Gyökeres, and get Zubimendi. Maybe if not, there will be runners up for the fourth time. So again, for me, if Arsenal sign a striker and they sign, if they sign a striker and sign Martin Zubimendi, that will not be enough to win the league. I'm sorry, it won't be enough for me. And the reason as to why I say that is exactly what I said at the start of this very season. They did not have a substitute for Bukayo Saka, and once they lost him to injury, they really struggled. They had a Raheem Sterling on loan who didn't really make things happen. It didn't happen for him. Of course, he didn't get enough playing time, but that was because the manager maybe thought he couldn't really rely on him. So that was there. Two, if they do not get a creative midfielder, it won't really help, even if they get a very good striker. Because once they lost Martin Odegaard to that ankle injury for a period of about 2 months, they really suffered with their creativity. So for me, they need more than just Martin Zubimendi as well as a striker. We do not know where the conversation will end with Thomas Partey. The two parties are involved in contract talks, and they want to know very soon where that conversation lands, whether he is able to agree to new terms and he stays at the club for another year or two, or whether they do not agree and each party moves on, because they do have options already lined up should they lose him. Then there's a conversation about Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard, for me, who I think the club should keep both in addition to another winger. So if Arsenal only go out and get a striker and a midfielder, in a holding midfielder like Martin Zubimendi, still it won't be enough for them to go and win a major title. Why? Because there comes a period of time when you're playing 3 games in a space of 7 days. You play Sunday, you can't play on Wednesday, you're back in action on Saturday. So you need a big squad. You need the squad depth. And we all know about the injuries of Gabriel Jesus. I'm sorry to say this, but Gabriel Jesus will return from injury. The expectation is maybe around Christmas, that's around December, or maybe late November. He will return, maybe play for a couple of games, 1, 2, 3, or even just 1 month, and will be back to the sick bay again. We do not know what is going to happen with Takahiro Tomiyasu. He's been out for the larger part of the season. You really do not know what is going to happen. We've seen Ricardo Carafiori in his first season struggle with injuries here and there. I mean, so they need more than just those two. You say Liverpool, Frimpong and Bats signed, they will be champions in your opinion. Once they sign those, you think they will be able to retain the Premier League title. So, I mean, yeah, they are contenders. But again, I would say for them signing Florian Wirtz and Joshua Zirkzee, and Jeremy Frimpong, I do not really feel that's enough. I do not feel that's really enough, because we do not know what is going to happen with the likes of Diego Jotas, the likes of Darwin Núñez, the likes of Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, for whom Barcelona are interested. We do not know what is going to happen around those players. We do not know what is going to happen with Joe Gomez, Joel Quanch. We do not know what is really going to happen there. So again, it will depend on how they behave overall in the transfer market or the transfer window. Apologies for that. You say Manchester City third. They are going to struggle again next season. A lot of new players in the team. Again, I mean, I do agree with you. I feel that they bringing so many new players to try and rebuild that project into another winning team could sort of prove a bit of a challenge for Pep Guardiola to remain quite very competitive in the Premier League and also on the continent if they do qualify for UEFA Champions League. But even if they do not qualify for UEFA Champions League, I think they are guaranteed of at least qualifying for UEFA Europa League. So, I mean, that kind of thing. So, yes, I do agree with you that having so many new players could sort of affect the way they apply them. Among the players that could also leave Manchester City is their goalkeeper in Ederson Morales. So, I mean, that's another food for thought. But yeah, let's wait and see how that equally transpires in regards to how Liverpool do behave in both the transfer market as well as as well as all the other teams that will be competing. Of course, I mean, I do not expect that, yes, the goalkeeper whose name I was looking for is Mama Dashville. Georgi Mamadashvili. That's the Valencia goalkeeper who will be joining Liverpool this summer. So Kelleher could be on his way out. So, anyways, with that said, I think because you do expect that maybe teams like Aston Villa, teams like Newcastle, teams like Tottenham, let's not forget Manchester United, a sleeping giant in there. We do not know how they're going to compete next season. They could, look to destabilize any of these teams. You never know. With Manchester United only having the Premier League to concentrate on, if Amorim gets his cards right in the summer, he could build something and sort of be a surprise team in the conversation, the way Arsenal were in that season of 2021-2022, when those young kids burst into good form. Emile Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus. No, not Gabriel Jesus, but that cohort, Nuno Tavares, Martin Odegaard, Granit Xhaka, that cohort of players. If Liverpool keep their current players and not sell, I think they can retain the league with the Bayer Leverkusen players. They can do it again. Yeah, they can. That they absolutely can. That they absolutely can. But let's also not forget that part of the reason as to why they were able to win, I do not think Arsenal will go next season and draw as many as 14 games as they've drawn this season. They'll be looking to get the edge over those games. They'll be looking to convert so many of those draws into wins, and that gives you a different competition. Of course, it could also fall apart for Arsenal in any case, but we all know that the biggest pressure is going to be on Galateta's shoulders and everything in that respect. But it is true that if Liverpool recruit well, retain all their good players, they've already retained Virgil van Dijk, put him on a 2-year contract. They've retained Mohamed Salah. We all know what kind of threat he is. He's had his best season in a Liverpool jersey with a 46 goal contribution so far this season, looking to match the levels of Andy Cole when he was I think at Newcastle in 1993-94, when Ashley Cole, sorry, not Ashley Cole, when Alan Shearer was at Blackburn 94-95, they had a 47 goal involvement in a season, so he's looking to match that record or possibly break it. All he needs is to score 1 goal and provide 1 assist in their final game against Crystal Palace on Sunday, and he will have broken that record. So again, he could be a refreshed player. He's one of those players that do really take good care of themselves and to remain competitive. So, anyways, what I think we've exhausted all the topics. Manchester United can surprise a lot of teams. Cunha, special player, he can make a difference in my opinion. He's a very good player, still a player in their prime. 25 years of age, I think turning 26 soon if he hasn't already. He has a 21 goal involvement, 15 goals and 6 assists to his name. Very good player. But again, for me, it will depend on how the manager is able to educate the players on how he wants to play, and if the players buy into that project. There's already some doubts for some players. I think the likes of Garnacho and that kind of thing. You see, when you're a team like Manchester United and you're a manager there and you're not winning so many games, doubt in your abilities as a manager does creep into the minds of the players really, really quick. Amidst all the criticism that comes at them on social media, from the pundits, from the press, and everything that there is that they may have their attentions on. So for me, that's a thing. So really, would be interesting to see how Manchester United do behave next season, how they go about their business. But because of their financial problems or challenges. I'm really interested in first seeing how they are going to go about the market, and in regards to predicting where they may finish, I'll have personal reservations on that, because I'll be interested in seeing how they behave in preseason. Really, whatever few games they may manage to play during the preseason will be key in painting for us the kind of picture of how Ruben Amorim will want to play, and the kinds of players that he would have chosen to retain, if any, and that kind of thing. But yeah, there could be a surprise package. There could turn out to be the Nottingham Forest of this season. So who knows? Anything can happen, because Manchester United is a sleeping giant, we must say. It's just a sleeping giant. And nothing can be taken away from their history. They are the second most successful club in English football. So we really can't take anything away from them, even when they've had their worst season in a Premier League ever. I enjoyed our football discussion. See you on the next football update. Thanks, my brother. It was good to have you, Prince. I thank you for really engaging, being so engaging. I thank you for all the questions, for all the opinions, the feedback. I much appreciated, my brother. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG community. It was good to have you. I'll count on you going forward for your support and contribution to these discussions. I will always have a daily broadcasts. A Monday to Friday between 10:30 to about 11, depending on the schedule. I'm yet locking on the time, and then every night. I shouldn't call it evening, but usually between 10 and 11, that's when I do come live to speak matters football, update my people about what's happening in most of their clubs. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you again, but it was good to have you. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Mr. IQ, to Mr. IQ 286. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Mariam Omoto. Thank you for Risha Young. Thank you, Kriki. Thank you, Kriki. Thank you, George. Sorry, I had missed your earlier chats at the time when you sent them in. But let's engage once again tomorrow. Tomorrow is a Saturday, so I may be coming between 11 and midday. That's when I do expect to do the broadcast, and then we'll look at the weekend. What's going to happen? What do we expect in the weekend, and that kind of thing. But it was good to have you all. Have yourselves a blessed night. For those of you that watch our broadcast much later after we finished, we do not take your time for granted. We do appreciate you really so much, as well as to all our new subscribers. Welcome to the community. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the night. But our usual suspects, do not forget to check out Ebostet if you want to learn digital skills in coding, web design, as well as cybersecurity. Ebostet, a team based in Kasanga, Kampala. I'll leave their link in the description later so that you can check them out. They do have a 5% offer for all of you if you want to enroll for any of those training. They do them online and both in person, as well as career guidance, and help you find a job after your training. So have yourselves a wonderful rest of the night. See you guys next time, if God does permit us to be here. Bye bye for now.